We were just actually peeking to see in. We didn't mean to come out yet. So. We've got a little bit of time for a few questions. I'm going to start with one. Jason, for me, one of the key things on the film, one of the things that I loved the most was the musical score that you had playing throughout. The emotions that drew and the beginning in particular, like right from the very beginning, you've got those few bars of music going for probably 15, 20 minutes of tension going. Can you talk about that working with the composer for the ceremony?
This is a very different movie musically for me. I think my movies are usually much more about the songs, and I've come to rely on songs really, and this one only has a couple in it. My composer, his name is Rolf Kent, and he also works with Alexander Payne. He's done almost all of Alexander's films. And this is the first time, usually when you do a musical score, you start with melody, and you would email me normally melodies, and I would say, this is great, this could work in this scene, build on that. And this is the first time where we started with sounds. He would just send emails, and each one would have a different sound, and the sound would be named after different forms of heat. I said, I want hot sounds, so one would be called scorching, another would be called boiling. And I'd email, I like scorching, maybe you can do something with scorching. And it was only really at the very end of the process that he started to incorporate melody. And so it was a really interesting new way to come into it for me.
And was the score something you had in your head from the very get-go, or that sort of developed as you were doing the film?
You know, I found with every film, I've usually had a song or a musical palette that was in my head in the writing of the movie and through the production of the movie that I thought, this of course will be the sound of the movie. And then what inevitably happens is the first time I watched the movie with the music I had originally intended, I realized the movie and the music are then saying exactly the same thing. That the music that you need as inspiration to write and to go through the process informs the tone of the movie so much that by the time you're finishing it, you actually need music that says something else, that is in contrast to what's already on screen, because you can't have everything can't be saying the same thing. So originally my plan for this film was classical guitar, start to finish. To give you an idea, Thank You for Smoking would have, if I had gone with my original ideas, Thank You for Smoking would have been the Swingle Singers from start to finish. Juno would have been Yola Tango, start to finish. Up in the Air is actually supposed to be Hank Williams, start to finish. And I planned on opening and closing the movie with Ramblin' Man. I mean, that was just like that. I had the rights. I was like, this is done. This is happening. And none of the songs were in the movie yet. So I should learn at some point.
Questions from the audience. Does anyone have one? Yes, the lady right in the middle.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I certainly wrote this.
Can you hear it at the front, at the back?
The question was about casting and how I found these actors and whether I had it in mind from the beginning. And sorry, I didn't get that right.
Good job.
I had Kate and Josh in mind from the beginning, and I asked Josh to do the movie, and he said yes. And then I asked Kate to do the movie, and she said yes, but I'm unavailable for a year. So the question was, do we try to find someone else, or do we wait for Kate? And when Kate Winslet says yes, in a year, you wait and you make the movie in a year. And that's how Young Adult came to be. I actually had to hear it. I was like, all right, let's put it in the movie. And Diablo had a screenplay, and thank God it happened that way. But yeah, I can't imagine anyone else in this film, and they're brilliant. And it's a very different, again, movie for me, in that I'm used to my characters speaking at a mile a minute. My films are usually very dialogue-based. They usually involve characters who speak for a living, in fact. And this is the first time where the movie had to be told through a gesture and a look. It's about them on the stairwell, and she lowers her head into his chest, and he puts his hand around her waist, and she closes her eyes. And those are much more important than any of the words in the film. And they taught me a lot about how much can be said in those little moments.
Gentleman right in the middle.
The scenes with the young Josh Brolin, stunningly well done. Can you talk a little about that process?
question is about the scenes with the young Josh Brolin and how well they were done. And yes, Jason, talk about that.
Sure. Well, when we started planning this film, I thought we were going to have millions of dollars in Benjamin Button money trying to create a young Josh Brolin. And then this young actor named Tom Lipinski walked in, and he looks exactly like him. It's just frightening. And I can only imagine his elation when they found out we were casting young Josh Brolin. The strange thing is, he's such a funny and almost goofy dude, and when he smiles, he stops being Josh Brolin. But the second he does that, he's identical, and he was wonderful. And we, of course, I mean, that's the strange thing about this movie is on paper it's very simple. It seems like a simple shoot. It takes place in a house over the course of 5 days. One of the characters doesn't change wardrobe the entire time. But the movie actually takes place over 4 decades. And for a movie that's supposed to take place in 5 days, Kate Winslet has 50 costume changes. The screenplay had 300 scenes in it. It was a bear of a movie to shoot, and we had to constantly be hitting all these different moments in time. And doing a timepiece in the 80s is also really tricky. If you do a movie that's in the 1780s, if I snuck something in, like a horse and carriage from 1750 or 1790 into 1780, you probably wouldn't go, no, that horse and carriage was not around in 1780. But if you do it in 1987, everyone knows exactly what that looks like. And to do that without making a joke out of it was really tricky. My costume designer, Danny Clicker, my production designer, Steve Sackler, were both brilliant. They would get old yearbooks, and they would get old catalogs from department stores, and we'd go through and we'd talk about the hair and talk about the clothes, and we'd get very detailed. And again, I work as a team. It's sad that I'm the only one up here right now, because they should be hearing more applause. When I would do, for instance, extras casting, and we would cast all the people who were in the background, I would bring that whole team in, and we would go through as a group and say, all right, this is someone who could maybe a nurse in the background, and this is someone that we could see out on the lawn when they walk by the guy with the red hair. And we look at hairlines and all kinds of things, facial structure. Okay, what's going to be right for this moment?
Right. Now they're making a red shirt.
Thank you. My question is just jumping off what you were talking about with the flashback scenes. It's very steeped in, I guess, some sort of nostalgia, or at least it's very idyllic, even though what's happening is very dark.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious choice of you to not make it the past nostalgic and at least a yearning for the past? Can you talk a little about that aspect?
The question was about the past scenes and the nostalgic feel that those had, as opposed to the darkness.
Well, that's the thing, contrasting the two. It's a very good question, but it's more to do with that a deliberate.
And whether that was deliberate or not in Jason's.
I guess the short answer is I wish I could have a more deliberate answer for these kinds of questions, because so often I think directing decisions are all based on instinct. You have a reaction to a piece of material, there's a way as a director that you want it to feel, and you have an instinct for all the answers to the questions that will get you there to that feeling. And that's how you answer questions over the course of a day, because you get 1,000 questions a day, and you hope to answer 800 of them right. And when you start when I made my first short film, of the 1,000 questions I'd be asked a day, I would get 900 of them wrong. And I'd watch the finished short film and realize that all the things I was intending to do were not happening. I wasn't affecting the audience in the way that I wanted to, because I just didn't know, by making all these binary decisions, yes on this, no on that, blue on this, red on that, slower when it should have been faster. By making those decisions, little decisions wrong, you don't manipulate the audience as effectively as you wanted to feel them, get them to feel that thing that you felt, that I felt when I read, for instance, Labor Day, the book. So, I said this would be a short answer, I'm sorry. So I don't actually know why I made it look the way I did. It was an instinct that this is going to be right, this is going to make you feel a certain way. My generic answer would be that this is a movie about lost time. and what it feels like to have time taken away from you for no good reason. And I find there's too many stories that are about right and wrong. This shouldn't happen, this should happen, and we're gonna right that wrong. And so often, it's so gray. And I think the reason why I respond to the material so much is that that's one of the most painful feelings, to feel that the concept of lost time, the idea that you made a left turn when you should have made a right at some point, something you could have never known. And that's what we were exploring. So it's simultaneously painful and nostalgic.
Any questions up in the balcony? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to go to the gentleman over here in the middle. Yeah.
You've worked with some great actors in the past. I was just wondering who you'd like to work with in the future.
The gentleman commented that Jason's worked with some great, excuse me, some great actors in the past, and if there's anyone he's looking forward to working with in the future.
Well, I mean, most of the actors I've worked with, all of I'd like to work with them again. So, Ellen Page, Jamie Gardner, George Clooney, Vera Farmiga. I mean, these two. I have so many great. I've been really fortunate. I've been very lucky. Literally since I was a sperm. I mean, when people ask me how do you become a director, my first answer is be the son of a famous director. It's unbelievably helpful. I can't sell it enough. But I've been very lucky. I was lucky that on my first movie, actors like Aaron Eckhart and Maria Bello and Bill Macy and Robert Hall, people who had no reason to say yes, said yes. And they gave me a career. By giving me these kinds of performances, these performances are gifts as a director. There's so many actors I want to work with. Laura Linney, Tilda Swinton, Rachel McAdams, Matt Damon, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The list is just an endless list of actors that I want to work with. Sorry.
We have time for one more question, and I am going to go to the lady over here. You got it.
Awesome job, by the way.
Thank you.
How long did it take you to adapt the novel, and did you leave anything else? How was that process?
Repeat the question.
Yeah.
The question is about adapting the novel to the script. And if Jason can talk a little bit about that, how long it took.
So I adapted the novel very quickly. Again, this was very much a cut and paste job of I want the movie to feel exactly like the book. The one big difference is that while in the book you find out Frank's entire backstory in one chapter, I decided to weave that into these kind of flashbacks, so you're slowly getting a feel for who he was. Before we close out, I'm going to say just one funny anecdote. We'll close on that. Josh took the pie making very seriously. And the first time I met Joyce Maynard, who wrote the book, the second time I met her, she taught me to make a pie. She taught Josh and Kate to make pies. And Josh wanted this. I mean, we knew this was the hottest sex scene that we were all ever going to make, was the pie scene. So Josh would make a pie every single day. You would go to his weekends, weekdays, you would go to his cottage. He was staying in this beautiful cottage in Massachusetts. And he'd open the door, and this picture of masculinity was in an apron, thrilled about the crust he got that day, or the way the juices were coming up, and really excited. And look what happened! And he'd give pies to everybody, which at first was really charming and lovely, but by the end of the shoot, you're like, oh fuck, he's coming with another pie.